Ever wonder what really happens behind the scenes in construction, real estate, and development? We pull back the curtain on the new home construction industry, the real estate market, and the trends shaping it all. Discover the stories, insights, and expertise behind the process of building a new home. Join us for Trust the Process podcast, and let's build something great together. Welcome back to Trust the Process, podcast where we talk about real estate, new home construction, the housing industry, and everything in between. Today we are going to talk about a topic that's a little controversial, especially here in the desert: water. So I know that just stirred a lot of people up right away.
I can hear them. I can hear the trolls in our comments
all
right
builders taking all the water, building so many homes. And so wanted to do a bit of a deep dive on this, just so that we could sort of lay the foundation for the awareness of the water. Obviously, there is a conservation effort, but some of that, and then maybe answer some of the questions that we get from people about water and about building as how it relates to water. So I'll let you take our resident expert. I'll let you take...
And this is not one I'll claim full expertise on, because there's geologists that study this, and there's a lot of things that go into it. So I don't proclaim to be an expert, but it is something that's relevant to the industry, and it's relevant to being a citizen of the Southwest. You know, none of us are probably supposed to be here. Yeah, I pretty much took some of the most hostile land in the country and said, let's put a couple million people in it. Sounds good to me.
But we do live here, and we are realtors, and you've been a broker, and now you're a builder, and so you have a perspective that overlays, and we've answered these questions and had these conversations with so many people over the years as it relates to housing. So while you maybe aren't an expert in terms of the geological sense, I think in terms of the housing market and the Las Vegas trends and what we understand about the water
and the greater Southwest,
exactly. I think there's definitely an expertise that follows. So you can wear the hat on this.
Okay, you're right. And I did get grilled a lot on this, and even before I was a builder and developer, and now I definitely get grilled on it now, but I remember as a broker, people would ask, "Well, were you worried about water?" And
yes,
we the bottom line is that we're here. We weren't probably not supposed to be in the middle of the Mojave Desert or in the middle of Arizona or in the middle of the Inland Empire. A lot of California's desert, and a lot of population lives, in desert or even arid climates like Denver, and just really anything west of the Mississippi is kind of technically arid. I guess until you get to the Pacific Northwest, but a lot of the population west of the Mississippi lives in arid climates, so water is a huge concern. And the bottom line is people want to live here. There's a lot of industry, there's a lot of economy here, a lot of economic activity in these arid climates. So we have the infrastructure. We definitely are built accordingly. We can handle the development. And I think what prompted me to, inspired me to do this episode was that every time I see new projects approved, especially maybe on social media or newspaper, social media account, you'll see it. It's a game I have with myself. I hit the comments. I bet I won't scroll past 3 comments before the W word comes in. Oh, it's like, you're building it all. Where are we going to get all this water from? Okay.
And it's a real concern. So, they have a valid point.
But when it's a 300 home, and to get into the weeds, and I don't expect everyone to know all these statistics, but if people could only realize how kind of foolish they look, let's just pretend it's an announcement that it's a 300 home or 300 unit apartment complex.
Okay. Oh,
where are they going to get all this water from? Okay. Las Vegas recycles, this sounds hyperbolic, 99% of its interior water usage. So you could run every faucet all day long, flush every toilet consistently, and as long as it's hitting a drain, 99% of it gets recycled back into the water supply. So an apartment complex with 99% of its water use being used indoors, maybe a little bit of desert landscaping in the perimeter, and then 99% of that being recycled, that's not where we need to worry about our water. And the same people probably leaving that hate mail are living on golf courses with pools in their backyard. That sounds familiar. Hold on, that was incriminating. They're living much more of an environmental impact to have just a pool or having a yard with grass.
And even back to that apartment, that's one pool for 3 or 6 or 700 people.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It's a complex
right.
of 300.
Exactly.
There could be 2 to 4 people living in each home. And
Right. And the people themselves, so then that water
So
you're
now
losing
you have
just.
to put one in every backyard.
Right,
You have,
exactly,
you
right.
consolidated efforts
Right.
in that regard.
Right. Or when you look at a new hotel, hotels on the Strip recycle 99% of their water. The Strip, just in general, only uses about 5% of the county's, the metropolitan area's water.
Resource, really?
Yeah, they only use about 5% of it. And like I said, 99% of that is indoor, and 99% of that is recycled. So, minus the fountain at the Bellagio, which has its own artesian well, which is how they got that approved. They're not
Interesting.
Yeah, they're not resource drainers. I mean, they probably use a lot of power, a lot of AC, but in terms of water, not big users. So overall, about 60% of Clark County's water is residential. And then approximately 40% of that is indoor. So yes, the suburban tract home uses a lot of water, uses a lot more water than, let's say, an apartment complex. But a newly built suburban tract home with desert landscaping and a pool limited to 600 square feet of surface area, it's just not a big water user. In fact, the top 10% of residential water users use 35% of the water. So that is a very top heavy. The Sultan of Brunei has a home here, and right around the corner, and he had that house address had a $26,000 water usage fine because he just uses so much water. So it just puts it into perspective. Not even just the top 10%, just the top 10 top water users, residential water users, are using 60-70% of the water, so of the excessive water. So because they're not flushing their toilets 10 times more, it's all exterior. So they're not only using a lot of water, but it's wasting. It's gone.
Right.
It's out of the system. So that's why I wanted to talk about it, because it just makes me furious when people proclaim to be experts on water and it's a new 400-unit apartment complex and they have the outrage of where are we going to get this water from. Secondly, our water comes from the Colorado River it comes from Lake Mead by way of the Colorado River. And the Colorado River, about 18% of the Colorado River is used in cities and industry and everything that we think of. About 52% of the Colorado River goes to agriculture. 19% just goes to the vegetation and everything alongside the river that sucks up water. All the riparian ways, that kind of zone, that coastal zone, all that thicket and brush and everything that just kind of takes water out of the river. That, just the bankside growth takes up more than all the households and the cities and the industry of the Colorado River. 52% is agriculture. So the fact that we grow things in the most arid area of our country is just astounding to me. And we could solve all the problems if we curbed agriculture in the area by 20% or 10%. And I understand certain things just grow better in California, but it's insane to me that we're losing water. We're losing technically more, because I said houses and industry and cities are 18%. The riparian vegetation is 19%. Evaporation alone is 11%. It just evaporates 11%. I mean, that's more than half of what we're using in the households and the cities and the industry. So it's pretty wild. And then when you look at agriculture and break it down, the growth crops, like the wheat and the cotton and all those things, are only 20%. Not 20% of the 52%, but 20% of the water. And then cattle feed 32%. So keeping cattle and feeding them, that's 32% of the Colorado River goes to cattle in some way, indirectly, through their feed or through what they're drinking. So it's just, that is just,
but that's
to
a
me,
resource that we need too, right? We need the.
But that's movable. I mean, that could be done anywhere. Is my argument. We can't move Las Vegas. We can't move the Inland Empire or LA for that matter. We can't move those cities, but we could move some of that. It kills me that when we see a new development, the first thing we say is water, but because we're so sheltered, and a lot of people that are making those comments are living in suburban America or the suburban Southwest and just not realizing that agriculture is taking up 3 times what the entire city is, or every city that gets water from the Colorado River. So that part is wild to me. And it's those statistics that just make me crazy. They just really, really make my blood boil.
And I can actually even think of a couple of situations where, as builders come in and as the city continues to expand, it's helping the water situation. I know there's golf courses that have gone down, and then builders buy them and develop that golf course, and they're using significantly less water on that as a resource.
Fraction of it.
Absolutely.
And then if you think about as the city develops and grows, at least Las Vegas, and I'm sure other Southwest areas, because we're a city of extreme. We're super dry, and then we'll just pour for 3 days, and the water has nowhere to go but flood. So most of these cities, but especially Las Vegas, because we route it all back to Lake Mead, so we're just directly going back to the Colorado River. We're routing it all back there, whereas it may have just gone into the groundwater or just kind of been lost.
Yeah, and so the big water channels that are under all the roads, and as building and development happens in the city and it continues to fill out, those water channels are actually securing that resource and making sure that it's continued to be used.
It's controlling it, and now we're able to track it. And so although, yes, that new subdivision of 10,000 houses that went up over the last 5 years, it might appear that, look at all the water there. Well, inside every one of those homes, 99% of that water is being reused. So that's not even an argument. And then everything's desert landscaping now, and all the new construction stuff, which is drip irrigation. It drips water for 15 minutes. Literally a drip. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a flimsy argument at best, and it just makes me crazy. So, and then another thing that I think is very encouraging is that we've grown by 786,000 people in the last 20 years as a metro area. Almost 1 million, 750,000 people we've grown since 2002. And we actually decreased our overall usage by 26%. Per capita, we dropped it by 58%. The average person in 2024 or 2025 versus 2003 is using less than half the water. If you count, homes don't have ornamental grass anymore.
Yes.
Pools have gotten smaller, and just in general, we're more water smart. Toilets flush using less water.
Awareness.
Yeah,
and the water district has done a whole movement to try and keep awareness and put it front of mind, and they were paying people to take out all the grass that they had around their home and put in the desert landscape. And so all of those efforts, wow, that's a big number.
It's interesting. I mean, we're using a quarter, 75%. We're using 75% of the water that we were using 20 years ago, and we grew by 750,000 people.
That's good news. That's great. Yes.
So it shows you that growth does not equal more water usage. Irresponsible water management is what equals more water usage. Agriculture in an arid, dry climate equals water usage. So as long as we know what we're dealing with, I'm not advocating to get rid of every farm west of the Mississippi. I'm just saying we have to acknowledge that the Colorado River is an agricultural water supply more than it is anything else. And then after that, it's its own vegetation. Then every city on the Colorado River, and then evaporation. It's just crazy to me that that's where the water goes.
And while, yes, we have a limited resource here, Colorado River refills itself each snowfall.
Yeah, there's watershed.
Year. So it's right. So it isn't like it's a pond that we're pulling from that's going to run out one day. Or, I mean,
as long as we have snow on the Western Rockies.
But yes, so it isn't. We're not getting the snowfall here that would accommodate that in an annual basis, but they are. And so keeping in mind that our resource is refilling itself each year.
The watershed of the Colorado River is massive. If you look at it in terms of the swath of land, when they spread it out and you realize all the mountain slopes and ranges and everything that just kind of feeds into it, it's really insane. I mean, I can see where 3 or 4 years of bad snowfall and all those things, and plus growth of the Sunbelt states, and I get it. I understand.
Still an arid climate. We're still in a drought. We're still, it's desert.
But and then when people specific to Las Vegas look at Lake Mead and say, "Oh, it's because it is about 180 feet lower than it was since it was."
Can't get my boat in. The docks are high.
Of course, yes. But a lot of that is if we stopped the flow. I mean, we can control that, right? I mean, if we renegotiated that, which brings me to my next point. If we renegotiated that as a bigger city, which we should have more power. We'd be able to allow that reservoir to keep up, because the Hoover Dam generates power for millions of people in California, and they have a vested interest in us keeping that dam flowing. I mean, if it becomes Deadpool, doesn't matter. I mean, it's not no one in California is going to care about the ornamental grass anymore if they realize, we're not getting water. And that grid, we know that grid has a lot of problems as it is.
We don't own all of the rights to the Colorado River. So how is that divided, and
So
what amongst that do we get?
I was so hoping you'd bring up some history. 'Cause
I'm
so
just here to
ready
help.
for this.
Give you a little history. I like it.
So 1922, Colorado River Pact. So basically all the states, I think they were all states by that point. Yeah, they were all states by that point. Got together, the upper basin and the lower basin. I think it's 8 states: Utah, Colorado, Arizona, California, Nevada, maybe Wyoming, I can't remember. And then it also spills into, there's a delta in Mexico. So we also have to have discussions with Mexico too, in terms of what we're taking out of it. They also, so 1922, they came together and said, this is how many acre feet you're going to get, this is how many acre feet you're going to get. For reference, in 1922, California, as an entire state, was 3.4 million people. As an entire state. Now it's 40 million people. Nevada was 80,000 people.
Wow.
More people live in a master planned community than that now.
Yes.
Right now, Nevada's population is 3.4 million. So we're almost the size California was 100 years ago. So when they were negotiating that, and by the way, agriculture plus farming was more local, more of a local business. So the concept of not having farming in their state was just anathema. We would not even think about it. That's like telling us we got to go get water from the well down the street. Like, no, of course I'm going to have farms in my city or in my state. They didn't even consider about the sustainability of it. Are we going to be able to continue to grow almonds and cashews and things that take up a lot of water, those types of cash crops? If we had redesigned it today, would we probably have thought, yeah, that seems like a really good idea? No, probably not. Would we have a lot of livestock and cattle in California? Probably not. It's very water intensive industries and agriculture. So, I think that when we first looked at that 103 years ago, it just looked a lot different. And I don't think a lot of people predicted the growth that we had. And another little knife jab is that they think they overestimated the flow of the Colorado River by about, I think, 10%.
At the time?
Yeah. So they were overestimating how much water there was because it just didn't have the GPS and the technology to even figure it. And the data to go back 100 years and say, well, over 100 years, how much are we just not in a drought right now and we're figuring all this out? So that agreement is expiring December 31st, 2026. And the feds are probably going to have to step in because these states they can't agree. Colorado, all the upper basin states, the water's flowing there. I mean, that's coming from there. I mean, it comes from, from not just the upper basin states, but they don't want to give it up. They don't want to lose any of it. Denver doesn't want to lose its ornamental grass, but that's just as much a desert, arguably, as Las Vegas. It just is snowy, so you don't think of it as a desert, but I mean, water. It's a very arid climate. They probably shouldn't have ornamental grass there, right? So they don't want to lose it, and they don't want to be water smart, and they also don't have the infrastructure. Las Vegas is one of the top 10 most water smart cities in the world. It's like us, Tel Aviv, Singapore. I mean, we're a big player on that front. You're idly enough New York City, but again, New York City doesn't have a lot of landscape and vegetation. They don't have a lot of exterior irrigation, so as long as they're recycling, it doesn't surprise me per capita that they are pretty water smart. But these other Sunbelt cities don't have the infrastructure that we have. And you look at other states, even you say, Louisiana has an initiative to not flush your toilet. Why? Louisiana is all water, but they don't have the infrastructure to recycle. So they're using these reservoirs, and they say, we just filter our sewage and put it back in the groundwater. Right. So Vegas...
So much water that it's then a problem.
Then it's a problem on the other front.
Clean,
yeah.
Sure.
And I would actually direct some of our viewers to Southern Nevada Water Authority has a wonderful YouTube channel.
They really do. So yes.
The content is top notch, and the scientists there are very... They put it in a very palatable, and they'll be able to speak to the specifics of the data more than I could. But I would,
and it puts your mind at ease when you see some of those resources and you see what's going into the Southern Nevada Water Authority and how hard they're working to make it. There is a peace of mind that comes when you start to inform yourself about that stuff, because the rhetoric is the water.
Oh, you take a drive to Lake Mead and you look at the bathtub rings and you go, we're screwed.
Yes. But then you look at it from the other side and what is happening, and there's a really hopeful spirit that's happening on that front
and now it
isn't as catastrophic as some people might believe.
Oh no, yeah, we have tens of millions of people that occupy this zone of the country, and it is not going to be politically popular to let this part of the country dry up. Right. It's just not there. And What else is heartwarming about it is that all of us along that Colorado River, although we can't agree on who gets what, we all have a vested interest in, keeping the river sustainable and keeping us have access to everything. In fact, I know that Southern Nevada Water Authority invests in desalination and reconstitution, water filtration plants in San Diego and other municipalities in California. And then every dollar that they spend there, they get the equivalent in Colorado River. So we'll help you become more water smart. We'll invest there so that we can get more water. We can get more of an allocation from the Colorado River. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a heartwarming, interesting thing to watch. And then people will, as a side note, well, what about desalination? The best thing you can do is reuse the water you already have, right? It's potable water. It's now sewage, but you can clean it up and it's potable water. Again, disgusting thought, but it makes me want to have some water. But the best thing, that's the low-hanging fruit. Second would be wells. Third would be desalination. But an interesting statistic is that it's estimated it costs about 6 times per gallon, 6 times wholesale cost of water to desalinate that same gallon of water. So it's cost prohibitive now. That's why you're not really seeing it. I know Tel Aviv and Israel Israel as a country has a lot of desalination efforts because where they're at. They are technically the desert, but they're right there by the sea. So it makes sense to desalinate. It's right there, and if they can harness energy, a lot of the costs come from energy. And as solar panels become more efficient, one might see some innovations there where it goes from 6 times multiplier to 3 times, but then maybe the wholesale value of water goes up. So then,
and by desalinate, you mean take the salted water and turn it into a usable resource.
Right, it becomes potable at that point. So there are some environmental concerns that people worry about to say, well, now you have all this extra salt and you get kind of brackish brine water here that you're pumping back into the ocean and taking the good water. So where's the salt's got to go somewhere. So there's other concerns. It's not foolproof and it's expensive, but it's an option. But it is kind of tantalizing to see how much water really is close to us. In a couple 100-mile radius, you think, well, can't you just put a pipeline in and desalinate it and then just pipe it in? I know there are people
that think that from California, bring it from the ocean.
Right. Right. And I think that's smart that they say, okay, well, can we just? I know Phoenix looked at that and it became cost prohibitive, but it made more sense to pay for a desalination plant in Mexico and then let them use that water and then keep more of the flow from the Colorado River, like we're doing in California. So there's a lot of different ways around it, and it'll be fine. Ultimately, seeing single family homes pop up in the desert is not gonna be the end of our water use. It's just not. It's just not how it works.
Good. So we can put some people's mind to rest with that. Yes, builders are definitely doing great things for the valley and not taking our only best resource.
Right. And newcomers are not taking. It's not a zero-sum game. And maybe as California grows into those agricultural lands in the Central Valley and some of those farms, I would have to look up the numbers on that, but is the farming footprint in California getting bigger or smaller? As that land gets more valuable outside maybe Modesto and kind of those inland or Central Valley places, as those get sold out for development, if you took 500 acres of cattle ranch and made it homes, that's 20 times more water smart than having the cattle there. So
true.
And that farm maybe goes somewhere that's a little bit easier to manage in terms of the water. So I don't know, it's an unfolding situation, which always makes the best content. It's interesting, and it's a hot button issue. People are very passionate about it.
It really is. So I'm glad we addressed it.
Yeah.
Glad we took some and a good little history lesson in that too. So
I got it in there. I only went back 100 years. I wanted to go more. But
I knew you'd find a way.
Talk about geology. The late Cambrian era or something.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. Hopefully we were able to put your mind at ease and you have a better understanding of water as a resource and how it's being used here in the Valley. And again, that Southern Nevada Water Authority is a great place to inform yourself if you are looking for more information.
I think it's snwa.com.
Okay.
I believe, yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Trust the Process podcast, and we will look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning into the Trust the Process podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify to stay in the loop with the latest insights, project updates, and everything in between. See you next time.